Spain are world champions. Finally, the passing of the torch moment from the GOAT to the baby GOAT. I think we might be entering a second Spanish dynasty. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. We need to recap the craziness that just unfolded. There has never been a World Cup like this one. 48 teams, 3 host countries, and a month of gloriously chaotic football. Let's run it back from the very first whistle in Mexico City to the very last kick of the game. It all started at the Azteca, where Mexico beat South Africa 2-0 in a game that produced more red cards than goals. Sithole put on a generational disaster class for South Africa after getting caught in possession for the opening goal before getting the first red card. Raul Jimenez finally scored his first World Cup goal and got emotional during the celebration because he had lost his dad. And then the hydration breaks that nobody wants. Oh, bro, who even came up with this idea? No wonder Bielsa complained that football is now a game of 4 quarters. And honestly, he had a point. That's by the way. Next up is Paraguay against the US, where Miguel Almiron received a yellow card after VAR caught him taking a dive. This was the first use of FIFA's new mistaken identity law. This was the first warning for Almiron because a week later against Turkey, he covered his mouth during an argument with Matt Mulder and became the first player in World Cup history to be sent off for the Vinicius rule. I mean, I get the idea behind the rule, but this one is going to get controversial. After that, it was time for the main event, the debut of the great Vozinha and Cape Verde. And who could have thought? The mighty Cape Verde held Spain to a goalless draw as their 40-year-old goalkeeper Vozinha made 7 saves. And in less than 1 week, Vozinha went from 50,000 followers to 10 million. Uzbekistan also got their first ever World Cup goal through Abosbek Fezulai's header against Colombia. Jordan got theirs through Ali Olwan's brilliant finish against Austria. And Curacao, the smallest nation ever to qualify, scored first against Germany. That didn't last long before the Germans crushed them 7-1. Intense Brazil flashbacks there. Later on, Curacao grabbed their first ever World Cup point against Ecuador, with Eloy Rum doing his best impression of a Vozinha. Canada, meanwhile, thumped Qatar 6-0 in Vancouver for the country's first ever World Cup win. Not a bad month for the new kids. So overall, not a bad start for the debutants. Now it was time for the big dogs.
Back to Messi. Messi! 1 of 1, never to be replicated.
Messi scored his first ever World Cup hat-trick at 38 years old, drawing level with Miroslav Klose. 6 days later, he missed the penalty against Austria, but scored twice anyway to break Klose's record. Ronaldo blanked against DR Congo in a 1-1 draw. He then scored 2 against Uzbekistan and claimed, "I'm back." If not for that narrow escape against Colombia, things would have been bleak. But disgrace delayed is not disgrace denied. The biggest disappointment at this World Cup is Turkey. I am tired of the dark horse gimmick at this point. Turkey is burns, bro. 62 shots in 2 games without a single goal is diabolical. Arda Güler, Kenan Yildiz, Kerem Aktürkoğlu, Çalhanoğlu, and yet nothing. Not gonna lie, Montella is on fraud watch. Of course, they went on to beat the US when it no longer mattered. After Spain got humbled by Vozinha, Lamine Yamal scored his first World Cup goal against Saudi Arabia. Then Egypt made history by winning for the first time since 1934. While Egypt was winning, Ghana was hiring a shaman to cast a spell on their enemies. He placed the curse on Harry Kane and it seemed to work because Ghana managed to hold England to a 0-0 draw and could have even won a penalty. The shaman later lifted the curse and allowed Kane to score. South Korea won a comeback thriller against Czechia before crashing out in the last 2 games. Their manager was forced to retire and the Korean government launched an investigation. Imagine how much of a fraud you have to be that your own corrupt government is now investigating you. Uruguay were even bigger of a disappointment than Turkey, and I can only blame Fernando Muslera. What was this bro even doing? He was so bad that he asked to be subbed at halftime. No wonder Bielsa crashed out during that interview, and just like that, Cape Verde qualified for the knockout stages to play Argentina. France and their dictatorial regime were on a different mission. How is it fair to put Doué, Mbappe, Olise and Dembele in the same team? This is not fair because they smashed everyone in their group. 10 goals in 3 group games without going out of second gear. Erling Haaland was also banging in goals and becoming a fan favorite. The Norwegians stole hearts and minds with their rowing gimmick, which they stole from Iceland by the way, and I agree with that salty fan. They sailed, they didn't row. Then the round of 32 arrived and the giants started falling. Germany was knocked out by Paraguay on penalties, the first shootout defeat in their entire World Cup history. I don't want to see Goretzka at my club again. That's all I can say for now. Hours later, the Netherlands followed their neighbors, Germany, after losing to Morocco on penalties. Two footballing superpowers gone in one evening, all because of bad coaching and haram ball. Mexico beat Ecuador 2-0 at the Azteca. Pero Hincapié became the second man sent off for covering his mouth. Almiron walked so Hincapié could run, I tell you. England needed a late hurricane double to survive a genuine scare against DR Congo. Senegal's collapse was painful. 2 goals up against Belgium with 10 minutes left before Lukaku and Tielemans dragged it level. And then in extra time, Tielemans delivered the knockout blow in the 125th minute. The USA cruised past Bosnia 2-0, but the highlight of the night was Folarin Balogun's red card, and that's when Trump decided to interfere. He called Infantino and got FIFA to lift the ban. You have to know this is so bad when UEFA releases a statement saying that FIFA had crossed a red line. Even Sepp Blatter of all people was lecturing everyone about integrity. Portugal survived their own drama against Croatia. Ronaldo scored his first knockout goal in 6 World Cups. Can you believe that? After Croatia's goal was disallowed, Gonçalo Ramos scored to win it deep in stoppage time. Or so they thought, because just as the game was about to end, Joško Vardio equalized. But wait, VAR had to cancel the goal because the chip inside the match ball detected a microscopic hair flick from Matanovic. The goal was chalked off for offside. Luka Modric's international career at the World Cup was over at 40 years old. He is still one of the greatest midfielders who ever lived. Cape Verde saved their best for last by coming back from behind twice against Argentina, Duarte and Cabral cancelling out goals from Messi and Lisandro Martinez before an extra time own goal finally ended the fairy tale. They left Miami to a standing ovation and Argentina left knowing they had just been in a fight. Next in line was Egypt, which had just dispatched Australia in a shootout. They booked a date with the world champions. The round of 16 was where the hosts' party ended, all 3 of them in the space of 3 days. Morocco dismantled Canada in Houston, England needed Viagra and Jude Bellingham to defeat Mexico and the altitude of Azteca. The 40-year-old Memo Ochoa blew the game a tearful goodbye for one last time. The USA's ending was less dignified because they did all that to put on the biggest disaster class performance of all time. With Balogun controversially on the pitch, Belgium battered them 4-1 in Seattle. Norway then produced the shock of the round. Erling Haaland bullied Gabriel and scored twice to knock out Brazil. The only positive for Brazil was Neymar scoring a consolation penalty in stoppage time before announcing his international retirement in tears. The tears didn't stop flowing when Ronaldo joined Neymar out thanks to a Mikel Merino 91st minute winner, 6 World Cups, a goal in every single one of them, and still no trophy. Ronaldo then dropped the interview telling everybody that Portugal was nothing without him.
Ha ganado 3 títulos por Portugal. Antes de Cristiano, Portugal no tenía ganado ningún título, que para mí tiene la misma dimensión que un mundial, sinceramente. Por eso...
Okay bro, I guess. So, with 2 GOATs of their generation already knocked out, all eyes were on Messi and Argentina. To everyone's shock, Egypt was 2-0 up with goals from Yasser Ibrahim and Mustafa Ziko, and this was after Messi missed the penalty for the 2nd time in the tournament. Then, with just over 10 minutes to go, Messi took over the game and dragged Argentina by himself to victory. He assisted Romero for the first, scored the second before Enzo Fernandez delivered the dagger in the 92nd minute. Of course, the Egyptians lost their heads and went full conspiracy theory. If they handled the loss like Senegal, then people would have gone easier on them. But they actually accused FIFA of rigging the cup for Argentina. Never go full conspiracy theory, boys. Never do that. Switzerland completed the quarter-final lineup by outlasting Colombia on penalties after a goalless slog. The quarter-finals began with Mbappe and Dembele ending Morocco's run 2-0. Spain then edged Belgium 2-1 in Los Angeles, and once again the hero was Merinadinho the GOAT, pounced after substitute keeper Senna Lamine spilled Paul Kubasi's long-range effort. England against Norway had everything, including a conspiracy theory. After Shefdora put Norway ahead, Bellingham equalized. But the issue is that Norway's goal kick clipped the spider cam wire hanging over the pitch, which should have meant a stoppage and a dropped ball. FIFA later insisted the ball's internal sensor showed no evidence of contact. Okay bro, I guess bro. All this could have been avoided if Solot had just squared the ball to Haaland. Bellingham stepped up again in extra time to send England to a first semi-final since 2018. Who else? Argentina finished the job against Switzerland thanks to a brain-dead decision by Brel Embolo to dive. McAllister opened the scoring from a Messi assist. Dan Ndoye equalized, and in extra time, Julian Alvarez scored a banger into the far corner before Lautaro Martinez sealed the 3-1 win. So here we are in the semi-finals. For the first time in World Cup history, the semi-finals featured the top 4 teams in the FIFA rankings. France vs Spain, a rematch of the Euro 2024 semi-final. England vs Argentina in Atlanta 40 years after Maradona. Messi faced England and the curse of the World Cup champions. After all the noise about Yamal's quote, it was time for the unstoppable force to meet the monster that could kill you with 1,000 passes. Spain took control of the game from the start, and soon enough, Yamal won a penalty. Oyarzabal calmly slaughtered it to give Spain the lead in the first half. Then in the second half, Pedro Porro put the nail in the coffin after a slick combo with Dani Olmo. Game over. Spain was in the final. The French juggernaut had been stopped. Next up was England vs Argentina, a bitter rivalry steeped in deep animosity. From the Falklands to Hand of God to Beckham's Red, this was Messi's first time playing against England. The game started with a very physical battle that saw 19 fouls. In the second half, Anthony Gordon opened the scoring. After that, it was the Messi show, which was only helped by Tuchel deciding to pack the balls with 35 minutes left against this Argentina team. The team that came back against Cape Verde, came back against Egypt, and ground down Switzerland. Well, Messi took the invitation by setting up Enzo Fernandez for a worldie. He then put a pinpoint cross to Lautaro Martinez to seal the game. And with that, the final stage was set. The perfect script for the final was set. The god of football against the chosen one. The one touched by God himself. Messi against Yamal. But then the third place match came, France against England, a match nobody wanted. But it turned out to be the greatest game of this tournament. It was just all vibe, no defense. In the first half, England managed to score 4 goals because France's defense went on a holiday. They were asleep. And then in the second half, Mbappe turned under pressure and almost pulled off an incredible comeback. But you know, Bellingham and Saka said, let's put this game to bed. And the game ended 6-4 and became an instant classic. But who knew that England could actually attack? What happened against Argentina? Then the final. Everybody expected a cagey game, but no one expected Spain to completely shut out Argentina. Even Lionel Messi was off. I'm going to say it, this was one of the most boring and one-sided finals in the World Cup history. Argentina had 0 shots on target the entire game, and just before extra time, Enzo Fernandez received a red card. You know what? Thank God Ferran Torres managed to score for Spain in extra time to stop any potential robbery in the penalty shootout. But in the end, Mbappe won the Golden Boot and Rodri won the Golden Ball. The teenager Kubasi was named the young player of the tournament, while Unai Simon won the Golden Gloves. Lionel Messi bowed out of the final stage with the silver medal around his neck, but with global recognition as the one and only greatest of all time.